Good morning and welcome to another one of Drew's book reviews. So today's book review is going to be on Terry Brooks' Street Freaks. So this is definitely different than his Shannara, which he has become known for. So this is a story that takes place at a minimum at least 200 years into the future, as is referenced at one point in the book, the former United States 200 years ago. So this is a dystopian novel about a future world with a fractured society, and you have different areas, and it's referred to as the United Territories and the government of the United Territories as different segments of society, and there's strife and tension and separation and separatist movements going on, all kinds of stuff like that. So we've got our futuristic cities here as well, with flying cars, skyscrapers, hundreds upon hundreds of floors high. It kind of reminds you, if you can imagine, a scene from like Coruscant from Star Wars, where there's the flying cars and speeders going all over the place, and just skyscrapers and buildings that are just hundreds upon hundreds of floors high. And that's the kind of city environment that our characters live in within this book. But also, it's a world where the air has become so polluted, it's become toxic and poisonous to breathe. It's not safe to be outside, or you have to wear your personal filtration systems just to breathe safely outside in the main cores of most cities. And every building has airlocks and air filtration systems to prevent the toxic, polluted air from getting into the building. So it really is a futuristic world that has this kind of dystopian feel and setting to it. Our main character, Ash, he is this homeschool kid, essentially, whose father is a genetic engineer or geneticist who works for a massive bioengineering firm or corporation doing all kinds of research. And then, right out of the blue, one day, he gets this message from his father telling him to just flee and to run for his life, because something's happening, and his father is running for his life. And his father tells him to go to the street freaks in the red zone. Now, the red zone is basically, it is the ghetto. It is where the worst go, where the outcasts of society go, and nobody wants to be around there. So we find Ash, he's suddenly fleeing for his life into the red zone, trying to look for this group of people or this organization referred to as the Street Freaks, but he has no idea who the Street Freaks are. He's never heard of them before, doesn't know who they are or where to find them. He just knows he needs to get to the red zone, to the Street Freaks. That's where his father sent him to go. So that's where he feels he'd be safe, because that's where his father told him to go. So the Street Freaks are basically this street gang of people, of misfits and cast off. It turns out they are the cast off and failed experiments of Biogen. So they're a bunch of genetically engineered failures that Biogen, Ash's father's company, considers to be the cast off or the failed experiments, when really they just didn't turn out the way they were. But they're not failures, they're not bad people. And he falls into this group of friends where his whole new life essentially begins. So we have Woodrow, who is, for all intents and purposes, he's basically a human head on a robotic body. He doesn't have any body outside of that, so he's kind of got a rolling robot body. We've got Jenny, who's basically a walking chemical factory. She has to wear this pack on her back all the time that kind of cleans her blood, because she can't do it herself through natural processes. We've got Holly, who is essentially this cyborg mechanical creature, half robot, half human. And then we've got Tommy, who is basically a test tube soldier. He has been genetically modified to be the perfect soldier, except he doesn't want to be a soldier. He's not interested in that. Doesn't want to be a part of that. And then we have Kay, who's basically, she's what's referred to as a pleasure synth. So she has a specifically artificially designed robot to appear human in every respect, designed for the purpose, the sole purpose of sex, essentially. Now, something about that I find kind of funny. There seems to be this thing in science fiction where we have characters who fall in love with the machines. They fall in love with the robots. They fall in love with these artificial life forms. And that seems to be a common theme that keeps popping up in science fiction. We've seen it in the Orville, we've seen it in Star Trek, we've seen it now in Street Freaks. There's this idea that human individuals will fall in love with artificial individuals, fake people, robotic people, holographic people. And it's just, to me, that always seemed, well, really dumb, to be completely honest. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we continue to see science fiction stories with these ideas behind it. And, I suppose it's certainly not outside the realm of possibility, but in my mind's like, well, they're not real, they're fake, they're artificial, they're not actually human interaction. There isn't that, it's not real love, it's not real a relationship. And so I always found that kind of a dumb idea to begin with, but definitely Street Freaks plays up on that idea as well. And it seems to be a common thread within the science fiction as a whole, I'm finding, so that's not uncommon. But I guess it works in that sense. A lot of people are still buying this, and it seems to be something that's working. Well, otherwise, they wouldn't keep doing it, I suppose. Now, one aspect of this story is that we have our main character, Ash, who his father had been giving him this one drug called Pro-LX, which he had been told his entire life was because he had immune deficiency, and that if he didn't take it, he would basically die. He has to take this medicine every single day. And we later learn, after he flees, he's not able to take his medicine. And he's concerned about being able to get some more, thinking that if he doesn't take it, he's going to die. But that is simply not what happens, obviously. And then later on, we find out that this drug wasn't, in fact, for any immune deficiency whatsoever, but rather it was for a memory suppressant. And what I found kind of bad about this, or silly about this, is the way that it was played out in the story. Is that, we learned that it was a suppressant of some kind initially, but we're not really told what that suppressant was doing or what it was suppressing. But then suddenly, right out of the blue, they figure out, or Ash figures out instantly, oh, it was suppressing my memories. Now I remember stuff, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous and not a well-developed plot point at all. Basically, just suddenly, hey, I remember now. This is what my dad told me, and suddenly he had all the information that he needed about what was going on with the government, with biology, and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. For that, I would have liked it better if it was more well thought out, I guess. I would have liked it better if maybe there's like this slow memory recollection as it slowly comes back to him, as opposed to this sudden like epiphany that suddenly he remembers absolutely everything, and figuring out, oh wait, it was a memory suppressant. I remember now. That just didn't play out very well. I didn't feel it was executed very well. So that aspect of the story I didn't really like with this particular book. But nonetheless, Street Freaks was still a decent book. I wouldn't say it was a great book necessarily. It wasn't horrible, but definitely it reads like a typical dystopian young adult narrative novel. There's not a lot of, I guess, originality in the whole dystopian young adult idea. The same basic concept. You have this teenager, this kid that's thrown into a group of misfits who now has to fight for their survival in a dystopian future world. And that's pretty basic to the dystopian young adult novel story type. So there's nothing really original in that respect. Overall, I enjoyed it. I like the dystopian novels, but there but not a great book, but not a terrible book either. Overall, it was certainly a fun read, decent read, not too terrible at all. So those are just my thoughts on Street Freaks by Terry Brooks. So of course, as always, stay tuned. Up next, we are going to have Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. That's coming up next, so definitely stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. As always, we'll have the links to all my social media profiles in the description below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on another episode of Drew's Book Reviews. Have a great day.